Here's another fascinating scene from the Five Musketeers. This is the scene in which D'Artagnan reunites with the British royalists, known as the Knights of St. George. James took D'Artagnan's hand and they shook. "It means so much to hear you say that," James said. "I do swear that I will do everything in my power to help you return home to your families and your France." "Thank you," D'Artagnan said. "You have the grace and courage of a Gascon." "I shall take that as a compliment," James said and stood up. "I'll bring you some food and medical supplies." The musketeers protested with overlapping voices, something about the medical supplies not being necessary, and something about English food being more terrible than starvation. But James went off anyway. They all looked at me next. D'Artagnan was the first to speak, though. "Thank you for rescuing us," he said. "I understand you played a large role." I shrugged. I tried to help. I couldn't leave without trying. But having an army to fight the guards with probably helped more. "Nevertheless," D'Artagnan said, "you helped save our lives when you could have fled to spare your own. For that, I thank you. I would also like to apologize for forcing you to come with me." I looked surprised. That was out of the ordinary for him. He must really be feeling guilty. One more layer of guilt to add to his deepest, darkest secrets, I thought. There was a part of me that still felt frustrated by his forcing me to join them, but another part whispered Isabel's words back to me about how they would kill me if they felt they had to. But I nodded. "I accept your apology and forgive you," I said. Aramis still did not seem to like me. His dark eyes narrowed towards me, and he went to open his mouth, but before he could speak, James arrived back with food and medicine. Immediately, the musketeers burst into talk of how they really didn't need the bandages, though they took the food almost immediately. I smiled and leaned against James once more. These men were Gascons to the core. The next day, we set off. Beside me, James had a wistful look on his face every time he glanced back toward London. Still, he was strong of mind and always looked ahead with determination. Behind us, the knights were resilient. Some of them were even joking. They'd chosen to risk everything in the hope of a better future. And then they'd lost the gamble. That better future hadn't come about through their efforts. Not yet, but maybe it would if they kept going. I certainly believed in them. Mary, clinging to her horse, was looking around with wonder, as if she was really a child and not an adult who'd been forced to grow up before her body did. Maybe she would find a happy ending where we were going. I kept thinking back to the battle and to my role in it. I had shot Cromwell's arm. I didn't like violence. I didn't want a part in it. Yet, something had changed. Deep within, I was stronger. Or maybe I was just thinking that way with the benefit of belief and hindsight. Whatever the reason, I wanted to get home. This century was so strange to me. In some ways it was brutal. In others, it was refined and elegant in a way that our modern society, with its multitude of cheap products and disposable methods, had lost the essence of greatness. In modern times, there were no heroic battles and little belief of fighting for a cause. But, for all its faults, it was where I lived and where the last of my family lived. As for the musketeers, they led the journey north to Scotland along with me and James. Though they kept their distance, I could see shadows of the young men they'd been gradually emerging. When they engaged in raucous laughter, as they did far more frequently now, the wrinkles on their faces disappeared among the lines of joy. They even moved less stiffly, and rather than looking worn out and tired, their posture had returned. Shoulders back, heads held high. They looked ready for the next challenge already, and their resilience was outstanding. There were still traces of age and wisdom among them too. Sometimes I watched as they slipped into the recesses of their minds. I wasn't close enough to hear the words, but I did catch the musing tones in their voices. No doubt they were continuing to produce sumptuously abstract musings about the human condition, or how they hated England. "Gascons are not born to be docile or commensal," D'Artagnan once told me, averse to groupist conceptions of society, which might unleash the destructive force of communitarianism. They were paradoxically willing to work with each other and with a group of the English that they so despised. That was what would lead us to victory, I knew. Our willingness to work together, no matter the nationalities or the personalities separating us, would help save us all. Onward, We all went to Scotland and freedom. I couldn't wait.